Well, I didn't
Guess
have a
them now.
take. I wanted to break it down. And I've seen some
Yeah.
other places they're trying to break down who would win in a fight. And because, Cenk is
Really?
quite confident, he says, I'm much larger than Joe and I fought my whole life. I'll end him. And of course, given Joe Rogan's past and reputation, there's articles comparing their heights and size and everything and how it would go. So I wanted to give where how I think this fight would go out, my official prediction if Cenk
All right.
and Joe
One
Rogan
question.
fought. Yeah.
I knew Jeng did boxing or something when he was young, but he's been fighting. He's known to be a boxing exercise
So it's
a
good that you
lot.
asked
Or
that. I will answer that by responding with the information I found on each of them. It's good that's exactly kind of what I was going to do. So,
sorry, yeah, I'm
first of
breaking
all, we're
for.
going to consider this as being an MMA fight. And at the end, I'll give a stimulation if it was a boxing fight. But let's say if it's an MMA fight, so mixed martial arts, so like the UFC that Joe Rogan commentates, right? So that means you
MMA is the
can,
one that there is no rules except the eye thingy, right? And
yeah, I
the
mean, of course, there are a bunch of rules, but it's pretty much it's all the grappling arts and the striking arts together. So there are still rules.
uh,
It's just it's in that way. But yeah, no, that's a good way to put it, right? So let's consider if they get into an MMA fight. First, I'm going to give the tail of the tape, as they call it in the industry. So their heights and all this, so
what's
we can
that?
see where they're at. So,
What
Cenk,
they call that? Tail of
yeah,
what?
tail of the tape. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's like the
Okay.
term. Okay. So let's start with their height a little bit. Cenk is 5'8", 5'8.5", apparently, based on what I found. And Joe Rogan's about an inch shorter. And actually, I'll put a picture right here when Cenk, back then when he was friends with Joe Rogan, he went and they did the Joe Rogan podcast. So they're standing next to each other. You can kind of see. Then when it comes to weight, so I couldn't find their weights
Wait,
online.
wait. How important is that?
So the high, well, I'll tell you. I'll get. That's a good question. That's a very
All
good
right, all right.
question.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
let
I
me give
sorry.
those. No, that was a really good question. So in my stimulation and prediction, I'll tell you how I think these factor in.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. All right. Sorry, I
So
didn't know.
yeah,
Okay.
no worries. But their weights, I don't have it. But just looking at it, I would assume Cenk has 15 kilos at least, which is about 30 pounds at least on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has a lot of muscles, but
Isn't muscle heavier than fat?
I
Because
believe
I
so.
feel no
No,
offense, but
no,
I
no,
feel like
no.
I mean it's not his job, but Cenk is a
Yeah,
slightly more
yeah.
uh,
Um,
you know,
I
whatever.
believe so, but yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but I,
But
I
yeah,
think
50
he
I
looks like
think
he,
30 pounds is fair. 30
yeah, he
pounds is
looks like
fair.
he's quite a bit heavier. Yeah, 30 pounds, let's say. Okay. So that's kind of their physical attributes, we can say. And age wise, Joe Rogan is 3 years older than Cenk.
Wow.
However, Joe Rogan, people know he's in great shape, and he's very public about the fact that he's on TRT, so testosterone replacement therapy, that makes him a
Oh, he
significantly younger person. So he injects testosterone into his body to take the levels
he
back up.
but isn't all right. Anyway, all right. I
So
would
yeah,
imagine
no,
it
what were
has
you
some
gonna
side
say?
effects.
Sorry. Yeah,
Side effects.
testosterone replacement therapy has some side effects that I'm sure he
But
monitors,
it
but
does increase your strength.
it just increases your level of testosterone, which has huge benefits in terms of like physical gain and all this. Like it's like a steroid or even better because your testosterone level starts dropping from the age of 30 pretty
Is that
much
human
among
growth
men.
thingy?
No, this is no,
Is that
he's pretty much
oh
no,
this is
it's just
something
testosterone. It's nothing else. Your testosterone levels start dropping at the age
I
of 30.
after yeah,
So
yeah.
you add testosterone. So he's a 50-year-old man, but he probably has as much testosterone in his body, if I understand this correctly. Someone please
30.
correct me, as a 30 or 25-year-old, even, or something like that. And in the UFC, there was TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, was actually legal for a while, and some fighters were taking it. And Joe Rogan named one of the fighters who used to be called Vitor Belfort. He started calling him TRT Vitor during that special time where he was allowed to take TRT and compete because he had
So it
just
became
turned
his
into
nickname.
a beast. Yeah. Joe Rogan came up with that.
To be
So
fair,
this,
I'm gonna look into that for myself.
yeah, no, but doctors prescribe it. Even people who are injured, they take it for a while. It has all kinds of. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, build the muscle.
But
Except in my
okay,
brain
so
now.
that's that. So age-wise, Joe Rogan is even older, but I believe he's probably in much better shape. Now let's talk about their kind of athletic background. So Joe Rogan, it's well documented that he did taekwondo at a decently high level at a young age, going all the way up until competitions, and there's footage on this until the age of 19. So he has experience in taekwondo, and he's very well known for his like leg kicks. I'll put some clips here. Oh, 120,000. 127. His spinning leg kicks.
Straight line. Straight line. Straight. Straight line. Always straight.
And his short leg and his low leg kicks. They post those all the time online. So that's his taekwondo and kickboxing background. Then as an adult, he's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu under 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. His friend Eddie Bravo, he often comes on the podcast, especially when he was in LA. He was like the king of conspiracies.
Jiu-jitsu is the very mixed, pretty harsh one, like
no, jiu-jitsu,
right?
No, jiu-jitsu is on the floor.
Grapple.
And yes, it's grappling on the floor, and you put people in submissions. So you put them in a choke or your
like
arm.
Wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling on the ground. It's jiu-jitsu. It's different than wrestling. It's a specific sport, but yeah, it's grappling. But you're asking all the right questions. It's actually going in the right direction.
Asking all the questions that somebody who has never seen a fight in his life.
No, but that's good. I don't think many of our audience
touch each other.
So that's Joe Rogan. He has decent experience, but he's actually never fought in MMA. So he's never was an MMA fighter, and his boxing is not particularly, I think, good. And he also never did wrestling in college. So let's bear all these things in mind. Now let's move to Cenk.
Why do you? One thing, did he ever do jiu-jitsu competition?
Jiu-jitsu competition. I'm not sure.
And why do you say?
But he's a black belt. He's a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
He must have. But why do you say his boxing is not good? He
relatively speaking, based on like the footage I've seen and his past experiences.
But he's done boxing though.
I don't think to anywhere near to the same extent as he did taekwondo as a kid, or he did jiu-jitsu. So I'm sure he did boxing, and he himself, I believe, has talked about how he wasn't as comfortable with his hands. And I mean, if you watch videos of him online, it's not him punching a bag. It's always him.
It's all leg, and
it's not all legs. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry about that. Just a little technical issue. But yeah, Sam asked so taekwondo focuses and prioritizes your legs, but your hands are still, you can still use your hands, but depending on different tournaments, they have different rules. But yeah, it's primarily your legs, and whereas boxing is purely your hands and a special way of punching. Like you can't like spin around and hit people with like the back of your hand or something. You can just like do a couple of types of punches, and that's boxing.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
English boxing, it's called, more specifically, I believe. Okay, so let's move to Cenk, and here I didn't have as much information. So you mentioned that perhaps he's done boxing before, and I couldn't find anything on that. I've heard him talk about playing rugby in college, which is not a combat sport.
Really? I played rugby.
Okay, so now you might
I loved it.
Undermine my argument here. No, I'm joking. But I was gonna say it's not necessarily a combat sport, but there is the whole tackling involved. So you could say that there's a contact sport. And given that Cenk is American, he could have possibly done wrestling in high school. So based on all this, I'll say that he possibly has some wrestling kind of experience.
And he's of Turkish background, and in wrestling in Iran, Turkey, Greece, is like a national sport, so makes sense. I'm sure his
Yeah,
dad must have like.
perhaps if they are, that is true if his dad knew, because if not, it's like one of those things that you kind of learn in school and through like classes. Yes, if his dad did, it's
In
true.
America, yeah.
Yeah. So based on all this, perhaps he's a little bit of wrestling, and that's about it. I doubt with the boxing. And then he himself wrote, I fought my whole life. I would imagine from this that he's saying that he got into street fights, and so he has some experience with throwing
Really?
punches and things like that. I mean,
Where
that's
did
what
he
I'm
grow
guessing.
up?
I mean, he's saying I'm much larger than Joe and I
On the
fought my whole
streets of
life.
Benghazi or
No,
like
but how
who?
would you
What?
interpret that?
I don't
Maybe he
know.
means like I fought, like,
Boxing. I thought because of the boxing shit I knew
no,
he's been boxing.
but
But otherwise, to be honest, yeah, fight. I don't know.
okay, Sam. So based,
He doesn't look like he's been faced.
yeah, no, I mean, to me, he looked like he could have gotten some fights. I mean, given his right-wing background in college, he was into rugby.
Wow,
You're
going
telling me during that
psychological.
time he wasn't like getting into a few bar fights here and there or on campus?
I
Or
don't know. I
I can
have
see
no.
Cenk.
I just
I would assume.
no. I was his whole life. I thought means like universities. I'm sure, but I don't know. But I think, I guess. But nowadays, I would assume he's well beyond his fight. Like he's got children and family.
You'd hope so,
I
right?
don't know, I didn't
Well, not
think.
according to this tweet, unless he means it in a kind of like very figurative way. I've been fighting my whole life. Which
But
I can
against
also see. Yeah,
establishment.
yeah.
Yes.
Which he could say both bullshits. So I really don't know which one of those bullshits he was trying to go with there. But okay, Sam.
We are applying the level of analysis to this tweet that is deserving of like Nabokov or something. Anyway,
But okay, so let me bring the analysis all together. Now I've given you all the different pieces, right? So let's say the fight starts in an MMA cage.
Who's the ref?
Sanctioned ref, okay, a proper ref given by the authorities. Okay, no. A real ref,
Jamie.
okay. Jamie would be a good one. But okay, Sam, here's how I think the fight would go in an MMA cage. And at the end, I'll give it in a boxing one. In an MMA cage, given based on the experience that I gave, Cenk being the bigger guy, clearly being someone who believes in himself a lot. I'm much larger than Joe, right? I'd end him. He's going to start coming forward, right? He's going to start coming forward and trying to kind of grab Joe. I could see him throwing some hard leg kicks, as we've seen, right? Hurting Cenk a bit there, but Cenk kind of still comes forward, tries to grapple. Then if Joe throws some kind of spinning kick or something, no, grapple a bit, because I think he will try to punch him and try to get a hold of him, like Cenk. I would think he would try to punch and try to get a hold of him, try to punch, get a hold. And then Joe Rogan, if he throws one of his spinning kicks or something and they don't land, they'll get entangled. And then here's your good question about the weight that you said. Is it important that Cenk is bigger? So it becomes bigger if they go to the ground. Height or weight, whichever one contributes to more weight. So like if you're really taller, of course you'll weigh more too. But when you start wrestling, that's when weight is like very important. That's when wrestling, they have like classes, like, like people who are 3 pounds heavier than each other. That's totally different. So
that's I know, but like I can imagine force.
Yeah, exactly. So Cenk will try to do that and take him to the ground. I can see there him being kind of on top of Joe Rogan a bit, trying to hit him and stuff. But this is where I think Joe Rogan's jiu-jitsu would come in. And unless he's super rusty, and which I know he doesn't practice now, but let's say if he had a fight camp, I think Cenk would get tired quite fast on top, trying to go crazy. And Joe Rogan would get him in a submission and win the fight in that way. So that is my official prediction of how I think it would go in an MMA ring, in an MMA cage. Sorry, I should say. And if you don't have any questions, I can tell you how it would go in pure boxing. So, okay, just to wrap this up, let's say if it was a boxing fight, then it was just them boxing. I think if Cenk knows a little bit of boxing, and him and Joe Rogan would just have a very boring fight of both of them being tired and barely being able to punch, and them kind of like colliding together and the refs separating them. And then maybe Joe Rogan, if he manages to be fit, maybe he'll able to,
Faster.
yeah, maybe he'll be able to punch and get away. But I think the boxing one would be nowhere near as entertaining as the fighting, because it would take away Joe Rogan's as the MMA. It would take away Joe Rogan's kicks, and it would take away Joe Rogan's jiu-jitsu.